How's it going, YouTube? Josh here with Work Safe Bitcoin, the channel where we talk about protecting your time and energy by saving in Bitcoin, no matter what your budget is. Saving your hard-earned money in Bitcoin offers a plethora of advantages that traditional savings avenues simply cannot offer. Today we're going to cover 3 reasons why you should start saving in Bitcoin today. So let's get into it. Reason number 1 is simple. Bitcoin is better than dollars. Let me explain. Dollars are a historically poor store of value. Dollars decrease in value as the total supply of dollars increases, which is called inflation. While you work hard for your dollars and try to save for a brighter future, your purchasing power is constantly being eroded because more dollars are constantly being created out of thin air. There's no limit to the amount of dollars that can be created. Bitcoin is different because it's deflationary, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin to exist. And every 4 years, the number of this new Bitcoin being created gets cut in half, which is called the halving event. Bitcoin is simply a better store of value because it's a finite asset, which compared to the US dollar, which is an inflationary fiat currency. So I want to take a look at this website called Priced in Bitcoin 21. It's a really interesting visualization. Here we can see how different assets have historically performed compared to Bitcoin. Pretty much every single asset has performed poorly compared to the value of Bitcoin, at least over the last 5 years. The average savings account only yields about 0.5% of interest per year, and if you held Bitcoin for any 4-year period throughout its history, your minimum return would be around 37%. So here we can see different assets priced against Bitcoin. So for example, the US dollar has lost 36% of its value over the last month compared to Bitcoin, 67% in the last year, and all the way up to 87% of its value over the last 5 years. So if you were lucky enough to hold Bitcoin for the last 5 years, you would be 87% better off than you would just holding dollars. And we could see all kinds of different assets compared to Bitcoin, and there is really no better store of value. So let's get into reason number 2, which is you can start with any amount. A lot of people look at Bitcoin and it seems extremely daunting because you look here and you see this high price, $90,000, and you think, the price is way too high. I can't afford that. I can't do that. But I don't think you should look at as Bitcoin as a stock that you have to buy. It's an asset that you accumulate over time. So one Bitcoin can also represent a smaller unit called a Satoshi, which is named after the anonymous creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. So one Bitcoin can be broken down into 100 million Satoshis. If you were able to save $20 in Bitcoin from your paycheck this week, that would be a purchase of 0.00022 Bitcoin. It's much more tangible and inspiring to think of this as accumulating 22,000 Satoshis, which is the conversion. When we price it in Satoshis, it seems a lot more tangible, like I can really see how my Bitcoin is stacking up over time. So instead of being daunted by this number, just break it down and try to accumulate what you can over time. And most people I talk to don't own any Bitcoin at all. And you can put yourself way ahead of the pack by just accumulating a small amount of Bitcoin in regular intervals over a sustained period of time. You do not need to be wealthy to start saving with Bitcoin. So just set a goal for yourself to set a certain percentage of your paycheck or your savings account aside to start buying Bitcoin. You can even set a goal for how much of a coin you aspire to own. And with Bitcoin having a finite supply, it's very comforting that your 1 Bitcoin or even your 100th of a coin will always be worth 1 Bitcoin or 1/100th of a Bitcoin. You will always own a set piece of this finite Bitcoin pie. So let's get into the third and final reason, which is Bitcoin adoption is growing rapidly worldwide. At a global scale, large institutions and even some governments are buying Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation and global financial instability. Major players in the financial world are now fully on board with Bitcoin. Recently, we had the approval of spot Bitcoin ETFs, which an ETF is an electronically traded fund. And basically, this is an avenue for more traditional investors to invest in Bitcoin. Basically, you can just buy a stock that represents a certain value of Bitcoin, and then the companies that issue these ETFs, like BlackRock and Fidelity, then buy Bitcoin on these traditional investors' behalf. And these different companies that have these ETFs have accumulated almost 1 million Bitcoin just this year alone since they've been introduced. That's 5% of the total circulating supply already taken off the market by these big institutions offering ETFs. But it's not just institutions either, it's also governments getting involved. Take El Salvador, for example. After becoming the first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, they've now committed to buying 1 Bitcoin every single day. This shows a strong belief in Bitcoin's future, especially from a nation that's betting big on using it to drive economic growth. Even here in the United States, we've seen the potential introduction of a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve bill. The idea is that Bitcoin could become a part of the country's long-term financial strategy, similar to gold reserves. So basically, we would hold some Bitcoin to strengthen our economy and to actually strengthen the value of the US dollar by backing it with a finite asset. And then there's Bhutan. The small nation has been quietly mining Bitcoin using its abundant hydropower resources, leveraging clean energy to generate Bitcoin for its national reserves. And that's just a couple of the examples that we know about. There's a lot of countries and companies buying Bitcoin behind the scenes, and a lot of this recent surge has been catalyzed by institutional demand. So all these moves, whether it's asset managers, governments, and entire countries, are strong signals that Bitcoin is here to stay. As adoption continues to grow, the limited supply of Bitcoin will only drive up its value. So by starting to save in Bitcoin now, you're positioning yourself so far ahead of the curve. Thanks for watching, and if you're ready to start saving in Bitcoin, remember it's never too late and you can start with any amount. So protect your time and energy by stacking sats today. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Together, let's work, save, and build a brighter future with Bitcoin. See you in the next one.